smaller rural communities, and he would like specifics on how you would help rural communities attract companies and jobs. Also, how do you ensure they're quality, high-paying jobs?
There's some good examples out there, Angela, for David, Howard, South Dakota, Gary, South Dakota. These are small towns that have really taken an incubator approach to business, and they've had really good success. But what it takes is a realistic evaluation of your town. You need to, first of all, step back and say, what are our assets? And then you have to say, do we have local buy-in in this small town? And then you have to say, who's our audience? Who are our customers? What's our customer base? And how do we get there? I think a lot of times people think in terms of hitting home runs in economic development, getting a new plant in, attracting smokestacks across state lines. We need to think in terms of singles and doubles and nurturing entrepreneurs at the local level, developing high-paying jobs there. There's so many good ideas that the people of South Dakota have, but they're capital starved and they need help. Toward that end, I think both the Lieutenant Governor and I have some similar ideas about the use of the READY Fund, about extending the scope and reach of the fund by using loan guarantees. He calls it securitization. In our plan, we call it loan guarantees, but it's really the same idea.
Do you agree that you agree?
We do agree on that. I released that idea 6 months ago. Senator Heideprim agreed with it about a month ago. I did have a jobs plan and I asked viewers to look at my website, dennisforgov.com. I have over 40 ideas, including ideas for small communities. One of the things that I've been especially impressed with is the Dakota Rising program that SDREI has offered in small communities around the state, where they work with entrepreneurs to network one another and offer them ideas to help develop their marketing plan, develop their business plan, and help them connect with financing. I've been impressed with that. My jobs plan is actually centered around 3 main thrusts. That is, invite. We still want to work with out-of-state companies who are looking for a refuge in this high-tax, high-regulatory environment that they find themselves in other states. We found Caterpillar is willing to establish an engineering design center. They just cut the ribbon on that this morning in Rapid City. Also, we want to initiate new businesses in small communities and large, encouraging entrepreneurial behavior. And then we want to innovate. Our research programs at our state universities help our economy by attracting out-of-state money. For every dollar that we've invested in research at our state universities, we've attracted $2.84 in outside money. And we want that not just for research sake, not just for knowledge sake, but for the discoveries that can be transformed into products. And those products could be manufactured in large communities and small.
Well, I would say that the Lieutenant Governor and I do agree about one other thing. He has a website. We disagree about what it says on the website. He proposes adding $60 million to the READY Fund, but he doesn't tell you how. Again, he's open to different ideas, but he has no specifics at all about how he's going to do that. It's really important, I think, that the people of South Dakota hear from us about how we plan to carry out these ambitious ideas. It is not enough to say that the READY Fund needs $60 million more dollars, and oh, by the way, I'll do an audit of state assets and sell some assets. We've proposed airplanes as a place to start. But the Lieutenant Governor, who, by the way, has been running for this office for 3 years, has no plans for any particular assets. But he is open.
Would you like to respond to that?
Sure. And I'm glad Senator Heideprim did remember that, oh, oops, I did have an idea about how to capitalize the READY Fund. In the second sentence of my jobs plan, where I talk about recapitalizing the READY Fund, I do talk about conducting an asset audit of all state assets and assets that are underutilized and could be redeployed as investments in the READY Fund. I don't pretend that all my ideas in my jobs plan are perfect. Maybe some of them are overly ambitious, but a good leader puts forth specific ideas. And I did that over 6 months ago. And I invite anybody to go look at that website. And I think you'll find that indeed there are over 40 such ideas that will help the economy in South Dakota grow.
Well, moving on, and this is an ongoing issue, whether there's a recession or not, people are concerned about poverty in South Dakota. Cheryl wants to know your plans to improve conditions on South Dakota's reservations, such as crime, health care, and education.
Well, I have stated in many forums that I believe that South Dakota's approach to dealing with the tribes has been wrong-headed in some ways. Just as South Dakota does not believe it makes sense for the national government to treat all 50 states with a one-size-fits-all legislative package, I also believe it does not make sense for South Dakota to say, I'm going to deal with the tribes in this way. It is disrespectful to each tribe's sovereignty to not treat each tribe as an independent sovereign nation. Just as we don't say, we're going to deal with North Dakota and Nebraska in this same way, we're going to deal with each tribe as individuals. So my first act as governor in establishing tribal relations is to go and meet with each tribe, not in peer, but on their ground, and meet with them and talk about their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities, their threats, and see what things that the South Dakota as a state can work with them as a tribal government as mutual partners in improving things on the reservation and off the reservation.
You know, Angela, in my campaign for governor, I've been to every reservation, and I've talked to Native Americans on every reservation. And it's so interesting to me because they still remember George Mickelson so fondly. They remember Governor Mickelson because he was someone who opened doors. He was someone who had a table in the governor's conference room that they knew they could be around when they needed to be. And I think the next administration is going to have to do something similar to that. It's not just a process of being open and listening. It's a process of elevating issues involving Native Americans to that cabinet level and making certain that they're treated seriously. We just had the chance to celebrate Native American Day in South Dakota. It's kind of a unique thing for our state, but it's an opportunity for us to say to Native Americans throughout South Dakota how important their issues are to us and how serious the next administration is going to take those issues. It requires sensitivity because of tribal sovereignty, which is important, and because of the federal involvement, which is also important. But there is a role for the state of South Dakota to play in making sure that those issues come to the forefront.
Well, we received the most questions about the wage freeze for state employees. Jessica wants to know how you feel about state employees making less than $25,000 who haven't received a raise in 2 years. Joan wants to know which positions and or services of state government you would eliminate. And another worker wants to know if they should be out looking for a new job.
Well, folks involved in employment with the state of South Dakota will understand that under this administration, the rich have gotten richer and the poor have gotten poorer. In fact, the people at the bottom end really have not done very well. But the people who work directly for the governor or the lieutenant governor do very well. There are 19 people that we identified, 19 positions, including cabinet secretaries and individuals who work for the governor, who received $533,000 in increases over the last 8 years. And then they turned around and gave contributions to the lieutenant governor's campaign of $63,000. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. That's actually what happens, and it's legal under South Dakota law. But that's part of the problem. Those are the folks who get the big increases, while the people who are at the bottom end of the pay scale don't do very well. And in fact, I think over 1,000 of them live under the poverty level. We have to do something about that. I've said for a long time that the best way to deal with that problem is we need to consolidate the size of state government. We have added employees, and this is a point that the lieutenant governor and I disagree about the extent of it, but whether you agree with him that it's 1,200 new positions or me that it's 1,500 new positions, it's too many. State government's too big, and we need to bring down the size of it so that we can treat those employees better.
Give Mr. Dugard a chance to respond.
Well, first I'd like to say that I know South Dakota state employees are hardworking. This caricature of government employees leaning on the shovel and cartoons and jokes that you see about government workers, they don't apply here in South Dakota. All the state employees with whom I'm familiar are hardworking, honestly trying to do a good job for pay. To the extent that executive employees received raises while the rest of state employees did not, that's wrong. That would not happen if I was governor. And to the extent that has happened, that's wrong. When I led Children's Home Society, there were times like these when our budget situation required us to take cuts or freeze salaries. I froze my own salary. I cut my own salary more than once. And a leader should set the example, and I will set the example as governor. I'd like to say that I would promise to raise employee salaries in South Dakota in this next budget year. I don't think I can make that promise. I think next year is going to be a budget challenge, and as I said, everything is on the table. I do want the employees to know, though, that when our economic picture improves, that's the first place I'm going to look as ways that we can show the appreciation that the state and its citizens have for our hardworking state employees.
Well, education has been a hot button issue this election year, more specifically how to adequately fund it. But there are other issues from teacher pay to college tuition, and we will tackle them when our KELO TV South Dakota gubernatorial debate returns.